let me get it. I need it. 1 second. Back. Sorry. I forgot that I needed a computer to read the question. I got one. So we alright. This is kind of ridiculous at this point. Welcome to Q&A with Bro.Diallo. Sunday Q&A. Now, give me 1 second. Pull the thing up on the thing, and when I get the thing up on the thing, then we'll be ready to go. Here we go. All right. Okay. Now I'm ready. What's up, Rip T? Praise the Lord, everybody. Now, I'm operating off of some very low batteries, so send up those prayers for battery life to the gods of coltan, so that my battery actually will stay viable. Because if I cut off suddenly, that's because I'm working with some low batteries. I've been out and running all day, so I haven't had a chance to charge my batteries. So if the battery if the show cuts off all of a sudden, it ain't because I got hurt. It wasn't a rage quit. But anyway, let's get it started. This is Sunday Q&A with Bro.Diallo. You know, so let's get it started. Let me just kill the theme music. Oh, it's not okay. Theme music is down. And we're ready. So anybody have any questions about politics, entertainment, labor politics, sex, economics, quantum physics? And I don't guarantee I have an answer for the questions, but I guarantee you that I will be honest about my questions, whether I have one or not. Schedule. Was it not today? Yes, we did have Nubians for Literacy. Nubians for Literacy is a study group that we have where we pick a book and Christopher makes up a syllabus and we read and discuss the books to promote literacy. We do it every Sunday to provide an alternative for ball chasing. So we felt that we have a lot of things that we ask black people not to do. Don't buy this product, don't support this person or that corporations. And so we think that whenever there's a boycott to say stop doing something, for the people who have invested time, energy, resources into not doing that thing, we should give them a positive alternate activity to engage in. So that's what we do. Correct time. And did you? Well, if you want to see our Nubians for Literacy discussion, you have to go to China Fox's. She generally broadcasts that. It's on the, you can join the Nubians for Literacy Facebook page, and she broadcasts it on China Fox's YouTube page. But I do share it. I shared it on my Facebook page and maybe on my blog. I don't quite recall, but I'm not really the in charge, because China Fox deals with all of the social media. China Fox deals with all the social media for the Nubians for Literacy group, study, National Book Club, and for broadcasting. So if you don't follow China Fox, you're missing out on a lot of other stuff as well, not just on the Nubians list. So follow China Fox, support China Fox, subscribe to China Fox. China Fox, every day, all day. Okay, Shala, I got my first. Chauncey, those are good questions, but those are more maintenance questions. But on Facebook, Sister Shala wants to know, what are my opinions on poly relationships and the black family? Poly means polygamy, a man with several wives, or polyandry, which is a man with polygamy is a man with many wives. Polyandry is a woman with many husbands. And what Brother Woes used to tell me was pigamy, where people was just everybody humping everybody with no real commitment or emotional attachment. He called that pigamy. But I actually support poly relationships. And the reason I support poly relationships is because I accept the fact that people are primates. And their primates have a lot of unique physical characteristics, and we also have a lot of unique emotional characteristics in terms of bondings. And I think that it is something that you can't avoid. So since you can't, monogamy is not a natural state for the human primate, and every single religious legal formation, every single state has tried to regulate. You don't even find, you go all the way back to the Code of Hammurabi, you go all the way back to the Kemetic system, Dogon. Every written or practiced system had regulations on how to formulate relationships and sexual relationships. And it's because humans do this thing across the board, across all culture. So as opposed to trying to deny it, I think it's a healthier thing to try to regulate it for the benefit. I think we're there's the mistaken Western culture belief that just because it takes two people to procreate, that's the necessary number to cultivate a child. But it takes way more than two people. It truly takes a village. So if people are going to engage in poly relationships, I think there should be some awareness, cooperation, sharing of resources, division of labor, distribution of resources, and all that. So I support poly relationships and what Western society does, because even though the society, the Protestant, Catholic, Western society that we were enslaved by, and many of you voluntarily continue to embrace, there is polygamy in this society, and it's just an economic polygamy. In most cultures, polygamy is based on familial ties, it's based on emotional ties, it's based on survival and cooperation. In the West, polygamy is based on strictly monetary relationships, meaning that you can pay someone to do all the things that you would imagine a husband or wife are supposed to do. You can hire it out. You can pay someone not only to watch your children, they would pay people or force people through slavery to suckle their babies, to provide emotional support and all that. So polygamy is here. So if we're going to have poly relationships with or without sex or intimacy, I think that they need to be regulated for the benefit of everyone involved, as opposed to these extractatory or purely economic poly relationships. Antonio, if you have a question, just go ahead and answer it. No, I do not think that marriage is a Euro construct. Marriage, the way we do marriage, the Euro aspects of is giving away the bride, in terms of women were considered property of the husband, and they were also considered to have a relatively low value. So that's why the father of the bride traditionally has to pay for the ceremony, and then he walks her down and gives her to the man. But if you find in other culture, Asian and some Africans and Native American Aboriginal cultures, the man had to pay for the wife, because to gain a wife is a great asset as opposed to a burden. But there are marriage ceremonies, formal bindings, and but no, it is not a unique Eurocentric concept. Most cultures have some formal bonds or formal ties prior to European invasion and imposition of European puritanical or Islamic formal relationship. It is not a Euro construct. It is a relatively modern construct, but no, there are indigenous African rituals and traditions, Aboriginal, Native American bonds. So no, it's not a Euro construct. But the way we engage in marriage in terms of head of household and giving away the bride and a diamond ring and all that shit, that's Euro. So we do, a lot of times, the way we do it is Euro, but the overall concept of pair bonding or poly bonding is not in any way original to or unique to Europeans. What do you think the cause? And now I'm going to Tito asks, what do I think the causes of the yellow vest protests happening in France, now Belgium? Do you think it's beginning of a revolution 2.0? The French are in France. What's happening in France are these people are throwing on yellow construction vests and raveling. But the French are very violent and volatile people. The French workers have always have a long tradition of blocking highways, causing disruption when they don't get their way. This current uprising in France that is spreading to other parts of Western Europe are about a proposed gas tax. The problem is that Europe, under the Marshall Plan, Europeans have enjoyed what is one of the strongest and broadest social safety nets in human history. Free medical care, free college, housing assistance, and all that comes with living in the part of the world that stole everybody else's shit. So Europe for a long time, France in particular, had colonies in Africa, the Caribbean, in the New World, in Asia, Vietnam, the whole Vietnam. Vietnam was a European Euro colony. So Europeans, French people, are very accustomed to living off of the wealth stolen from everyone else. But now in this new world order, the wealth of the world is not so easily extracted, but they still do extract wealth from their former colonies. But now that they have a neoliberal system, most of the wealth that France extract goes to the elite. So France has been going through, for the last 20 years, austerity, neoliberal austerity, which is the erosion of their social safety net. And so since they're going through neoliberal austerity, that means privatization, reducing the tax burden on corporations while increasing the tax burden on the people, the same stuff we're suffering here. But because French is a relatively monolithic society compared to the United States, they haven't built up their police state apparatus and the system of mass incarceration. So the average white French citizen has a lot more leeway to protest and let their grievances be known. And the French police are not accustomed to busting the head of white Frenchmen, unlike they are to the Arabs in the suburbs. So anyway, it's based on austerity, the many forms of austerity. It's not really a revolution because it's a reactionary process. So it is a European reaction. I think that the state, Macron will probably have to step down. They'll make some concessions, but the French people are going to and the reason why the French were able to have free healthcare, free medicine, housing assistance, and all that other stuff is two things. Number one, they were raping the world and stealing the world's resources and redistributing it amongst the average Frenchman. Number two, they had the Soviet Union. So Western Europe did not want Europeans in the West to go and adopt communism or socialism. So they gave the European citizens in Belgium, the UK, Deutschland, Switzerland, less so in Ireland, but that's a different situation. Even in places, and also because of the Spanish Revolution and the Franco-fascist dictatorship. But in many countries in West, they gave them socialism under capitalism in order to prevent them from being seduced into, but now by the communists. But the communist threat is over. So now capitalism is butt naked and showing its true face. And so Europeans are coming to terms with austerity. Now Americans, we're used to working 40 hours a week and still not making enough money to pay our bills, feed our children, afford health care and transportation. Europeans ain't used to that. And Europeans are being trained to live like Americans. So this is basically, it's not a growing pain, it's actually a contracting pain. The economy in France is contracting and going along with the American capitalist model as opposed to the European social democratic model, and Europeans are fighting. But unless it could become a revolution if they change their fundamental support of because this isn't an anti-capitalist uprising. This isn't an anti-austerity. This isn't a systemic revolt. They're revolting against a specific policy. But if that revolt against the specific policy leads into a critique of the overall imperialist and capitalist system, that's when you got a revolution. But I don't see that yet. Okay, let's go back to YouTube. They're asking, A lady got out of her car, quickly took a photo of my house, and then drove off. I'm pretty sure that means they're watching, correct? I don't know, Antonio, which is fine. I have no fear as anything that happened in tip you may be in watch. That's a good question about surveillance. About if you Black revolution in the United States right now is an open conspiracy. And there's actually a book written by H.G. Wells called The Open Conspiracy, which is an interesting read. And H.G. Wells was a bitter enemy of Marcus Garvey. But I don't want to get into that. The CIA in Langley, Virginia has a saying that you can't hide, or the best way to hide something is in the open. The best way to hide something is in the open. So revolutionaries, me being a revolutionary, has led to me being a very lawful person. In terms of, I don't do, drugs. I don't drink. I don't even go over the speed limit. I don't illegally park my car. I don't engage in nickel and dime side hustles. Because even though they're watching me, in order for them to come for me, they'll have to openly violate their own laws, which raises their contradictions. So if you're being watched, I always tell somebody, give them something to watch. Give them something, because most of us that they're surveying via social media, all they're doing is watching us consume shit and want to watch shit we want to buy and buy shit we can afford. And it's basically following a bunch of consumers around. So if you elevate within the revolution beyond advocacy, grassroots organizing, mobilization, and you get into things like sabotage, guerrilla warfare, counter insurgency or insurgency, then you have to go underground. That's when you got to delete your social media, change names and identities, and move off grid. But if you're doing that off grid underground shit and you're not engaged in armed rebellion, if you haven't evolved to that height of the struggle, then you're just playing cops and robbers. There's really no reason for it. Ever since I've started organizing, people are like, we got to take these security measures. The security measures are definitely necessary to protect your privacy and things of that nature. But, at this stage of the struggle, a lot of that cloak and dagger shit is just for you to make you feel like you're more important than you are. I'm sorry to say. I wish it wasn't the case. So yeah, take your basic measures, get your antivirus and anti-cloaking software, cover up your little thing on your laptop. There's little things you can do, but right now, they're not really interested in advocates, But if you're ready to get on some Black Liberation Army shit, you shouldn't be interacting with people like me who are surface. I mean, Dale Jones also talked about this quite a bit. And Mutulu Shakur, the above ground elements of the revolutionary should not have ongoing direct communication and contact with the underground aspects. Let's see with Facebook. Any more questions? My man Chris, he asked, why is there such disdain for Black philosophy and Black theory, specifically Black power intellectual work in the conscious community? The reason why there's such a deep vein of anti-intellectualism in the United States is because many Black values that Black people hold are direct offshoots of white values. When Black people were freed from the plantation in slavery, this is the root of Black anti-intellectualism that I'm talking about. When Black people were freed from the plantation, we were not allowed. When they let us off the plantation, they didn't give the best and brightest amongst us research grants. They didn't get, Black anthropologists, and they didn't do cross-cultural studies where they'd send a group of Africans, Black Americans, former slaves back to Africa to learn our culture and stuff. So what we did when we left the plantation is we basically looked around us and picked up, because before we went from literally being human cattle, without the right to read, without the right to write, without the right to form bonds, the right to enter into contracts, to engage in organized political parties, social clubs, or anything. We were beasts of burden. For 236 years, give or take. So when we went from being beasts of burdens to recognized as human beings because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, when we went from beasts of burden to persons, we had a lot of decisions to make. How were we going to structure ourselves? Were we going to stay here? Some black people went back to Africa, a few. Some went to Nova Scotia. But then they figured out if black people all went back to Africa, the U.S. economy would collapse and America would erode. So they stopped allowing us to go back to Africa. Long story short, we started adopting Western values. And one of the core Western values that we adopted, besides capitalism, Christianity, the Protestant work ethic, was to look at black people as valuing us according to our physical prowess. So you had people who were for 230 plus years were only valued according to their physical prowess. So when we adopted European value systems, we started valuing each other strictly according to our physical prowess. We started to adopt that. We're going to worship the white man's God. We're going to engage in the white man's economy. We're going to form white man family bonds. We're going to do everything else white folks do. Why don't we see ourselves through white eyes? So for the longest time, you will find black people will value the basketball player over the scientist, the boxer over the non-physical artist, our physical traits. There became a disdain for philosophy. Philosophy was alien to us. No black man has ever been valued for his ability. You know, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, Immanuel Kant, Jean-Paul Sartre, all these European thinkers, that's white folks' mess, white nonsense. You know, even Christians. You have Christians who have never read Martin Luther. How are you a Protestant, a Baptist, Episcopalian, Calvinist essentially, and you've never read John Calvin or a Protestant? So we developed a disdain for the physical because we were never valued by the system for our minds. So we are not valued ourselves for our mind. The only way to be of value to your people is to have things that the alien culture, that the oppressor values. So for the black man, it has always been strong body, weak mind. And even now, within the black movement, you will go to a meeting and people say, I ain't with all that talking, I'm about action, which is a very reactionary, menticidal thing to do. And that doesn't even count the systematic destruction of our capacity for thought, critical thinking, menticide. So that's why black people, even to this day, we have never reconstructed our intellectual culture. We have never recaptured what we lost intellectually. There's a lot of discussion about economic reparations. We fight, and many black people support trying to get back what we lost materially. But the immaterial things, black philosophy, black critical thinking skills, the African worldview, African social theories, we haven't even started on that. And some people think once we get that money, then we can pay to go to school. But even going to school to learn Western canon, Western philosophy, Western mind worldview, Western social theory, it still leaves us at a severe deficit. So the reason we don't value black philosophy is because our oppressor doesn't value black philosophy. He does. He uses it. But he don't tell us that. So we value, when we look at people on the screen, you look at a black man's value is according to how much material assets can he accumulate within the Western system. And the only purpose of intellect is for the purpose of selling your services, selling your intellect to receive fiat currency to accumulate material. So, you so smart, how come you don't have money? You know so much, why you poor? You got a master's degree, which I got, you graduated with honors, but you broke. So that's where it came from. So it's just another holdover from slavery and colonialism. I'm going to try to answer the questions quicker. I'm going to jump between Facebook and so I can get to more questions. Give 3 rational reasons to even birth or bear a child in age 2020 or beyond. 3 rational reasons to give birth is the continuation of the species, because it is the essential purpose of life, evolutionary purpose of life is to perpetuate life, and it demonstrates that you do have a desire to extend into eternity, But I mean, it's not a mandate. And if you think the apocalypse is nigh, then hey, I don't want to get you to do something that you feel that is a absolute lost cause. You know. But my wife and I, we have children because we felt that our mission, that we had the resources, and I don't mean money. I mean the psychological and communal resources to bear the children, and we felt that we had ideas and inputs to give to the cultivation of children so that they can carry on not only to develop into full human beings themselves, but make positive contributions to our liberation struggle. What about What are about vaccinations? Um, Actually, I'm one of the crazy anti-vaxxers. When when I started clinicals at Downstate back in 1992, I had to have a series of vaccines before I could go onto the clinical floors to do radiographic exams on patients. And after I got those series of vaccines, I developed conjunctivitis, atypical pneumonia, and several other very severe health problems. And up to that time, aside from having my appendix removed when I was in junior high school, I had never been hospitalized. I'd never taken an x-ray. I'd never had any severe ailments. But when I got that series of vaccines, I almost died. And from that moment, I started researching vaccines. I started looking into the writings of Dr. Gary Null and found out what was in there. And at the same time, I was vegan and this and that. So there's a lot of scare tactics and bullying and mockery that goes into the anti-vax movement, but I would encourage anybody, because it is quite a serious position, you should at least give into the research. I don't know why there's so many protected patents and so much secrecy around something that is so good and healthy. And the same people that don't give you dental care, that don't give you preventative care, that are willing to let black people die from cancer and all these other ailments, but they're very big on vaccinating us. So I think that, again, would be a personal choice. I don't go out here and tell other people, oh, you shouldn't vaccinate. Now, I go out and tell other people you should adopt the vegan diet. There's a lot of things I advocate and try to impose on other people, but something as serious as vaccines, I have a lot of questions about who holds the patents, why there's so much secrecy about the specific processes of creating the vaccines and the elements of vaccines, and the fact that the vaccine manufacturers are essentially protected from any potential damages that their product produces. If you buy a car and the car is faulty, then they have recalls and you can sue the manufacturer. If you buy a food product and you can trace it back to a source, there are several recalls. All of that, things that are in food and manufactured goods, vaccines have special exemptions and protections from all of that. So I'd ask why. And there's a lot of, it's a lot of information out there. I fall on the side of hyper caution, if anything else that comes from vaccines, as low as achievable. So what are my thoughts on the Me2 movement targeting black men the most? Neil deGrasse Tyson is now in the hot seat. What should black men do to counteract this problem collectively? Number one, I don't see the Me2 movement targeting black men the most. I think a lot of times we pay attention to when it's a prominent black man, but there are many prominent white men and not so prominent white men that are also. So I don't see this as a uniquely black thing, black target. I think long before the Me Too movement, black men have been more aggressively policed, tried and convicted for sex crimes, many sex crimes that we didn't commit. And because those black men were not Bill Cosby or Neil deGrasse Tyson, because those black men weren't seen on broadcast television, there was no movement. So I don't see that the Me Too movement, now the U.S. criminal justice system targets black men the most, but the Me Too movement itself, if it is targeting black men the most, which I don't see, it's only following in line with the larger criminal justice system. And I don't know why we would think the Me Too movement that is essentially also is a enforcement in criminal justice, but I don't see that. I just think we get more upset when black men, prominent black men, especially particular ones that we like, come under the auspice of the thing. As far as Neil deGrasse Tyson, man, listen, what black men can do to counteract the problem is not engage in predatory sexual behaviors. I think that's the main thing. Any man, but mainly black men, if you don't want to be targeted, don't engage in predatory sexual behaviors. Make sure if you're having sex with women, a woman or many women, and brothers out there with many women, shout out, y'all better than me. But anyway, make sure you have consent. Make sure you have a rapport with this woman. Understand that if you don't have fully acknowledged consent, if there's no rapport, if you don't really know this woman, then you should probably abstain, which is fully possible to do, believe it or not. Brothers, just let me talk to the brothers. Ladies, log off for a second. You control your penis. You can not have sex. But anyway, I'm not very sympathetic to these dudes. I don't really see Me Too as this wild witch hunt. I do have issues with the Me Too movement and these crazy ass white women. But I don't see these prominent men as victims, Cosby or Neil deGrasse Tyson. And being a black man, growing up around black men, having several opportunities to listen to black men speak candidly, having been up in the clubs, been up in the concerts, been on college campuses between here and Kansas City and in New York and back, there is a plague of predatory behavior by men against women. And there is issues with predatory behaviors of women against men too, but I never kicked it with women like that. I never had women that trusted me enough to tell me their darkest secrets. But it's a fucking problem. It's a fucking big fucking issue. And the number one thing that will protect men from falsely being accused of it is for black men to join with black women in fighting all forms of sexual predation. And when sexual predation gets stamped out or becomes a great rarity, then when a man is falsely accused, he can win the benefit of the doubt. But I think there's infinitely more cases of men getting away with predation than there are men being falsely accused. But the best thing a black man can do to protect himself from being accused of rape is not committing rape. From being accused of sexual predation or sexual harassment is by not. Believe you me, it's not that hard. And then there are other things like, if you don't have a rapport with this woman, don't be alone with her. Don't go places with her. Don't accept an invitation and don't offer invitations. Be low key. Hell, fall back. Let them approach you. But I've been married for almost 20 years, so I ain't gonna tell y'all how to do it, but I'm telling y'all need to do it. And I know this is an unpopular position because we like to, play this, but there is a plague. There is an epidemic, or should I say a pandemic of men who, again, sex has been commodified, and I was raised on I know to this day, by my head, I know the full song, Gangster of Love. I'm a motherfucker. I put a bitch to a test. She don't pass, she don't get blessed. And if the test consists of fucking my whole crew, then bitch, goddamn, that's what you gotta do. I grew up at 12, 13, listening to that shit repetitively. The bitch that I hate. Remember Poison Clan? Rip T, if you still on here, remember Poison Clan? There was a song where black men were told that women were using their vagina to get our money and that we were entitled to the vagina, and if she don't give us the vagina, it's because she's trying to manipulate us and get something from us, and these hoes, these skeezers, these tricks. It's a fucking problem. This anti-social, anti-women misogynist thing. And a lot of men, and now forget the gangster rap. The only thing that creates more misogyny than gangster rap is fucking the Bible and the Quran. God, Allah, wants nothing to do with women. He hates women. In fact, there was some Christian doctrine that said pious women, when they die, if you're a good woman and you die, you become a man in heaven. That's your reward for being a good woman. Woman created disease. Women's pregnancy pain is a curse. She's unclean if she's on her mistress. And all this anti-woman shit. I was raised on that. I became an atheist by the time I was 12, 14 years old. And I was in my late 20s before I was able to shake all that indoctrination. And I aggressively fought it. Even when I met my wife, I was on some old man in the house, boo, 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 beat my chest. I'm stronger than you, therefore I must be right. Might makes right type shit. And women have seductive ways, and a woman's trying to entice me. So all be all end all. The number one way for a man to avoid accusations of rape, sexual harassment, and any of these other Me Too accusations, the number one way to do it is not engage in it. It's not engaging it. And another thing, if you conduct yourself in a certain way around women and in these groups, then if you are falsely accused, which is relatively rare, if you are falsely accused, then you can have all of these character witnesses. People will step up. I'm pretty sure if I got an accusation, most people will step up and be like, I know Bro.Diallo. He's a nerd. Please. If you tell me he stole your vegan peanut butter cup, or he beat the crap out of you on Warhammer 40,000 role-playing digital video game, then yeah, I believe that. But, he ain't grabbed no butts and breasts. Because I have a reputation, and that matters again. There used to be standing in the community. Certain men had certain standing. But we want to complain about Neil deGrasse Tyson's when we still worship the most honorable Elijah Muhammad after what he did to those young girls. Old Messy Jesse is still a pillar in the community, and Al Sharpton and both of them have used their position for exploitation. Most of these preachers and our uncles and cousins, we got way too many unaccountable men to start crying about those who get a false rap. And that's another discussion. Now, when you bring white women into the fold and white people into the fold, that's another discussion. But amongst the community and the people, that's my position on it. Let us move on. What would you say to the homophobic black fighters in our community who believe the black LGBT is a hindrance to the black issue, despite us being black, obvious, as well as, well, what I have asked, because I remember, one second. Oh, say. No, I'm shooting a video. Can you keep it down, please?
No, sorry.
Yeah. You're not sorry. Just keep it down. Anyway, what I always ask, because I, coming from that school of a cisgendered, I didn't even know what cis was, but I'm learning the term now. A cisgender conforming heterosexual black man, I, believe you me, was one of those like, hey, yeah, these gays, these punks, these sissies, they trying to effeminize me, and I ran out and bought that book and read it from cover to cover. The effeminization, they trying to turn our sons into their daughters, and they using this gays in the media to make blah, blah, blah. And it felt good. It made me feel special. But then, again, I realized my only basis for all this anti-gay rhetoric came from my Baptist upbringing. My father was a Muslim. My grandmother was a Christian. I was baptized at Covenant Memorial Baptist Church in Kansas City on 47th and Truth. And I'm like, well, I'm an atheist. So I need a brand new rationalization for my anti-gay position. So again, I went back to Mwalimu Baruti. I went to the Irritated Genie of Sophis and the Black Straight Pride movement, and I started to review their documents after shunning my Judeo-Christian indoctrination and my Islamic indoctrination. And I tried to find evidence. Okay, the gays are turning us gay, and they're taking over, and homosexuality is a threat to our viability of our reproductions. And I found myself that there was no substantiation to their claims about the threat of the gay movement or the gay community. I couldn't find any substantiation of those threats. One second. Oh, say. Seriously? Sorry, normally I shoot this show in my room. What is going on? Oh, normally I shoot the show in the office, but I figured I'd come up here, got some nice plants, and I figured I'd come upstairs, because a lot of times I want to refer to some text, and I have my bookshelf over there and back here and over there. I figured I'd have more access if I wanted to run and grab something off the shelf, but I'm seeing that's a mistake, because my children don't respect me. They keep making noise when they don't have to, but anyway. And so I was trying, and then I reached out to some of these Umarites, these what I call black Puritans. These I'm African, I'm revolutionary, but when you look at their fundamental doctrine. It's evangelical, puritanical, fundamentalist ideology that they've draped in Africana. But anyway, I told them I'm ready to get back down with the anti-gay position. I'm very comfortable there. I spent most of my childhood and my youth there. But I need a rational basis because I'm a rationalist. I can't go around saying I'm a rationalist, logical, atheistic thinker, an evidence-based individual, and then I have some of these unsubstantiated views. So I was ready to be anti-LGBTQAI. I think that's all of it. But then, but then I couldn't. So I'm still waiting. And I asked the question when I say, hey, what are some non-religious, non-Judeo-Christian, Islamic, Western, what are some indigenous African criticisms? Or what are some recorded or evidence-based research on the threat, the what do they call it, the existential threat that the gay movement poses to the Black liberation struggle? And when I asked the question, expecting my other cisgender, gender conforming, cisgender, heterosexual, Black militant men to come in, it's like, okay, brother, here, let us teach you. They started calling me a fag. They started calling me gay. They started telling other people like Jason Black and many of them, they started going around the internet saying this brother here is pro-gay. When I'm like, just give me evidence. I love condemning shit. Do you know how much shit I got on my condemnation list? I just posted some very hostile dairy. I condemn dairy. Just before I came online, I'm down to condemn anything that's worthy of condemnation if I got rational, historical-based evidence to back it up. But anyway, I don't really say anything to the anti-gay crusaders because they're not. All I have is rational, evidence-based arguments, and they are not interested in that. So what can you say to them? I mean, so I don't go around saying anything to them, but I do mock them. I guess I can't act like I'm such a good guy. I do mock the straight pride movement quite a bit, and one of my main issues with it is that they take on so many people, they attract so many people, and they have our people expend so much time and resources on a non-threat. Like I would like to see the irritated genie or Brother Baruti to attack global warming, you know, heart disease, you know, miseducation. You know, like you could literally have a school teaching Black children the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem, and that Columbus discovered America for the last 100 years. But then they bring in some children's book with two gay penguins and the community's ready to march against the school. So my main issue with that is the misdirection of it. But then another thing, when Black people, when we identify our threats, when you, especially people like Dr. Umar, when you say, look at all the threats that Black people face, and I claim to be a defender or a champion of Black people, one of the things that these demagogues does is they try to identify an enemy they think they can beat. So I look and it's like, well, I'm the Prince of Pan-Africanism. I'm going to liberate my people. And I look at the U.S. military, I look at multinational corporations, I look at ecosystem destruction, I look at the colonial situation, I look at the Islamic onslaught, colonizing and raping and enslaving our people in North Africa, I look at the American fascist evangelicals, I look at all these threats descending on Black people. And I want to be seen as strong, I want to be seen as doing something. And out of all the threats I see, oh, single Black mothers. I could kick a single Black woman's ass. The gays, I could whoop a gay. Most heterosexual men, we think we can whoop gays. I've never put that theory to the test, but that's what dudes think. So I could whoop I'm going to blame single women. I'm going to blame young people that sag their pants. I'm going to blame gays. So all of their sources, huh? How long? Okay, I had to wrap this up. So all of their sources of animosity and all of their identified potential and active threats are these things that they see as weaker than themselves. They see that as an existential threat. So, you know, and they love Mugabe. And Mugabe just mismanaged Zimbabwe, but Mugabe can enrich himself to the tune of $1 billion while his people starve, while his people leave and go to South Africa and they're lynched in the streets of South Africa. And Mugabe says, African, I'm gonna kick all the gays out of Africa. But he allows the Roman Catholic Church to operate freely there. And the Roman Catholic Church is doing the same thing in Zimbabwe that the Roman Catholic Church is doing in the United States and across the globe, molesting children. And even though he literally oversaw the expulsion and attempted lynching of gay African Zimbabweans, not one Roman Catholic priest was strung up. Not one Roman Catholic church was shut down. And you got all these people like Dr. Umar and again, the irritated genie who love Mugabe, who are the Africans, and he's the motto of that. But Mugabe is a professed Roman Catholic and has never denounced the Roman Catholics. How are you going to kick out the political system of your colonizer but leave the religious system? So there's a lot of issues there. And I'm going to have to wrap this up. I hope I answered the question. You know, but I get caught everything from, because my very deep criticisms of the hustle that is the gay rights movement, that the hustle that's being run on the black community and black LGBTQAIs in particular, the hustle and how they getting pimped by the gay rights movement. So I get caught everything from homophobic to pro-gay person. And one of the progenitors of the gay conspiracy or the gay agenda. But I get called everything from a ashy, hotep sexist to a feminist pussy whip dude. So I get called out by everybody. I'm trying to make friends out here. I really am. But I'm going to have to wrap this up a little early. I just got the cut. I'm going to have to work out these kinks. I wanted to go from 8 to 5. I'm sorry if I missed your questions, but I'll review. Oh, and you've asked this question before, Chris. I'm sorry about African governance and statecraft. I will compile a book list on governance and statecraft for African people, because I advocate that we stop trying to reform the system and we begin to engage in statecraft. We're constructing a counter oppositional system of governance and human and economic and resource relationships. So I will write that down, because you've asked me that a couple of times and I've missed it. What about the elimination of black males as a slow genocidal tactic? Also, IBM, the black idle black men. Oh, you remember my IBM comment? But there's no such thing as there's some and also genocide. So I'm gonna have to dip out early, but I'll also talk about genocide. I did a show on genocide before, and that whole thing about gay genocide. You know, since we're all man lay with man pun man, uman pun uman, gay man, and all that is going to lead to genocide, which that is the most ineffective, if not inefficient, form to genocide. Trying to convince straight people to turn gay in order to subdue their reproduction. And also, a large segment of the gay population actually have offspring through various means. So that would, it's just white folks ain't that sloppy with genocide. They're genocide masters. They wouldn't waste time trying to subtly get us to turn gay in order to affect our genocide. They got other means. And instead of fighting the real means of genocide, we come up with these absurdist analysis, and we fight against absurdities instead of fighting against actual threats. Yeah, I missed a lot of good questions. I wish I had more time for this. Yeah, I read the Blacktivity. But anyway, my wife just told me I gotta cut it. I need to cut it. But I can't leave without my theme music. But I'm just putting on theme music. So I have to be out. So, and I'm sorry, this is a somewhat shortened Q&A with Bro.Diallo, but I didn't want to miss another week. So I'd rather have a shortened presentation than have to miss one. But I'll start earlier. but I was running around today. Sorry I couldn't get to everyone's question, but I'm going to post that book list, and I will talk about genocide, IBM, and slow genocide, this concept of slow or asymmetrical genocide. Because, I mean, we throw that word genocide around an awful lot. And because we are being subjected and have been subjected to genocide, every black person should have at least a grounded understanding of what genocide is and what genocide tactics they're actually using against us. And for what ultimate end are they doing this for? Thanks for listening. DialloKenyatta.com will be up this week. The site will be back up. Patreon is there. Please share, subscribe, and all of that so we can continue this effort. And I will be live and direct on Q4 Radio, AM 1680, Q4.org, iTunes, TuneIn app this Tuesday at 8 p.m. And maybe I'll start opening the phone so y'all can call in with questions. But I often have trouble getting over my topic that I have the notes for. But like I said, we working on this. With more support, I can get more time on the air, more broadcast time, more face time, and add more days if I'm not out in these streets trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. But anyway, y'all have a good evening. Be safe. Continue to make positive contributions to the just aspirations of African people. Peace.